Before you do anything today with this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, go to the show notes and click the link that is about the LinkedIn campaign that Sam and the folks at Future Leaders of Coworking are running to have co-working as an industry recognized as a LinkedIn category. Because at the moment when you drop down, you have to put in real estate, management consulting, hospitality, fishing or something like that, but there's no co-working button. And they've organized a change.org petition, which is going around and around and around, and there's in London alone there's 1,300 co-working spaces. So we could get this to like thousands and thousands of people. Send it to LinkedIn, job done. So link in the show notes as always, and let's get into the show and hear about Sam and the Future Leaders of Coworking.
Hello folks, and welcome to this week's what's this podcast called again? Coworking Value Podcast. And in the studio we have the Sam Shea from Future Leaders of Coworking. Sam, I should have told you this. What are you known for? And what would you like to be known for, Sam?
Hi, Bernie. Thank you so much for having me today. What am I known for and what would I like to be known for? It's a great question. So today I'm known for aggregator strategy, community building. I'm known for being a connector. And I would say I would like to be known for being a little bit visionary, forward thinking. Continuing to bring folks together and make the global co-working world even more connected than it already is today.
That sounds delicious. I think you're on that path. You're doing okay so far. Where I want to ask you about third places, and because that's like on my radar all the time. There's a lot of people a lot of people get on this podcast because I've seen them mention the word third space or third place. What is that for you? Third places and third spaces. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, a third place is somewhere that's obviously not your home or wherever you reside, and not necessarily your workspace, but really a place in the world where you can go to meet new people, hang out with your friends. For me, my go-to third space growing up was the library. I grew up in a very small town outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, called Davidson, and there really was only a handful of third space establishments. So if I was not at the coffee shop or the library, I was at the CVS pharmacy store, and that's where I would hang out and gather with my friends. But it's somewhere where you get to be where you don't necessarily have to pay to play to be there. It's a place that you can go and hang out and be a part of something outside of the community in which you are kind of pre-established, like your family.
Was there a time early in your life when you needed a third space urgently?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think in my personal life, there were definitely times where I needed to get away from home, whether I was an angsty teenager and I just wanted to break free from my parents, or if there were times where I needed to work on a project and have heads down focus time. In my town, there really weren't a lot of opportunities to get away from home or work or school. So finding that kind of safe haven was crucial for me.
Well, when was I love asking this question. So people listening to this have heard it a million times, but like, when was the first time you heard the word co-working or got an understanding of what we now call co-working?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was younger, I was obsessed with the idea of being an entrepreneur. I used to, sell bookmarks to my neighbors down the street. I used to pick up rocks and try to resell them to my friends. I was always trying to think of creative ways to rebrand and pitch a business idea. And I actually thought that I came up with the co-working concept. So when I was a kid, I had dreamed up a concept called the living space. And essentially, it was an idea to bring people out of their homes and find a place for them to host and have gatherings, and kind of like a secondary, living option. So they could come bring their friends there and have dinner gatherings. They could work there, and they could also access a shared kitchen space. And so when I was coming up with this idea, the internet was, quickly becoming popular. I started to do some research on what this could look like, and I realized I did not come up with the co-working concept. It was already available. This was probably around 2010. I had done some research and I saw that there were spaces like WeWork popping up in major cities like New York City. And that was quite a bit away from where I grew up. But I was so impressed that that concept existed and was being brought around the world. And I thought, why isn't this in my town? That would be amazing. I would love to be a member. Granted, I was a little too young to be a WeWork member at the time, but that's kind of where my knowledge and expertise of co-working really began.
Was that the first co-working space you heard of?
It was the first official one I heard of, yes.
As, what do you think it is? Because I have this too. What is it about bringing people together? Like that, like all my life, there's been some urge to get people together, and I'm not always quite sure why I'm getting people together, but I just love making dinners and events and parties and working groups and stuff like that. What are you trying to solve, Sam?
Yeah, like why am I trying to bring people together, or just in general?
Through your life, why do you have this like urge to do that all the time?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know why. I've always been very people focused. I guess I'm extroverted. For me, finding that sense of community and sense of belonging was crucial because I guess I could never sit with myself. It was hard for me to be alone, so I would always throw myself into different activities. I was very much into clubs growing up, so I joined, student council. I tried to start like a babysitters club, a dog walkers club, really any club I could think of to bring people together around mutual interest. For me, it was just energizing to be around others. And I found that in social situations, sometimes people were a little bit shyer. So if I could be the one to bridge that gap and make people feel comfortable and introduce them to one another, it really was appreciated. Not everyone has the confidence to make those connections on their own. So if you can provide a safe space for them to come together around a mutual interest or a place, it makes it a lot easier. And I feel like it goes a long way for lasting connections when you can actually be that connection piece.
Is it like that's that pulling people together is who may not, you just need a little nudge to get together is really, I think that's one of the valuable things in a co-working space, because someone can like get into a building and then gradually start to build a relationships, whereas if you go to a party you have to like kind of get it done really quickly. Did you ever run a group on meetup.com?
I did actually. I started my first meetup.com when I moved to Boston after college. I started a group called the Boston Ladies Brunch Club. That group grew to a few hundred people, but I basically didn't have any friends in Boston. I was seeking connection, and I thought, no one's going to invite me out. I might as well invite others. So I created a recurring brunch series where we had brunches about every 2 to 3 weeks, and I would invite 10 women to come. My target audience was young folks like myself who just graduated school, so 20, 30 somethings, and we'd come together for brunch and hang out and get to know one another and try new restaurants together, and I loved it.
I love Meetup. I joined in August 2008, and some of my best friends today have come through that. And that's in August 2008 is when I found Tony and New Work Cities, like in New York. That was like that. I didn't do anything with it. I wish I'd sort of opened a co-working space in London in 2008, but I saw
Me too.
I saw him doing co-working, and I was like, oh my God, that's it. And I ran a networking group at the time, and I just thought, like, every time we do the networking group and we all go around like saying, hi, I'm Sam the designer, I'm Bernie the accountant, and all that kind of thing. And then people would sit in the restaurant or cafe or meeting room afterwards and get their laptops out. And that was when the magic happened. That was when everyone started talking about this new thing called WordPress, or should they have a Facebook page and stuff like that. So it is. And we in London, for about 5 years, we ran this group called the London Meetup Organisers Group. And there was a guy that used to come who ran London Shy Meetup. And he would get people together who were really shy. So like 20 shy people would get together and they'd all go and watch a movie or they'd go and go bowling or something. And I thought it was the coolest thing.
That's so cool.
These people,
was there a single non-shy person there, or was every person required to be shy?
I don't know how you qualified to be shy, but it's
self-identified, I guess.
You'd self-identify. I'm shy. I'm shy and awkward. And you had to ask him at the the fact he even got to the co-working, because can you imagine what the kind of people, which is you and me actually, but the kind of people that run meetups are a little bit, gregarious or nutty. And so he would come to our meetup organizers group, and there was a range of people there there were people that ran unions, there were people that ran language groups, there were people that ran business groups and tech groups and music groups and everything like this. So it was an amazing mix of people. And then he'd be there, and we'd always joke, you'd have to ask him, like, does anyone have any ideas? And he'd say, Tony, what do you think? And then he'd answer. But that was the whole thing going on there. But
yeah, you have to be the instigator whenever you're running a meetup. It is strategic in my eyes. You can kind of read personalities. You can know who your advocates are going to be. Whenever I was running co-working communities, I always knew who the folks were I could pick on. So if I was doing an icebreaker, I knew who to call on first. And that really helps to have other folks champion what you're trying to accomplish throughout that given, community gathering.
Absolutely. Let's jump onto this, because I'm gonna I want to get this in. There's this. We talked a little bit about this before we came on, because there's this huge co-working universe now, and there's like big shiny starship places at one end, and there's these neighborhood places, and like you're in Catherine's Alkaloid Networks in Atlanta. It's Atlanta, isn't it?
It is Atlanta, Georgia. Yep.
Yeah. So can you explain how you navigate the full spectrum of the co-working universe, and and also where do you feel most at home?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. But yes, I have been a member of Alkaloid Networks for the last 3 years. I discovered Alkaloid through my day job at Liquid Space. At Liquid Space, I help oversee strategic supply partnerships around the world. So I do have a front row seat to the growing global landscape of co-working. And I get to interact daily with different spaces, everyone from the indie workspace all the way up to the larger global chains. And so it's a very privileged position to be in and see kind of the growth and evolution of third spaces over the last few years. And so for me, I feel most at home in the more indie neighborhood style spaces. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that's where I started my career. Back in 2017, right after college, I entered the co-working world for a company called WorkBar. It is a regional chain based out of Boston. And at the time, WorkBar was one of the more, original co-working spaces. The landscape up there wasn't as developed as it is around in the US markets, at least today. Boston was more pre-established, but they had started even before we work in that market. And so I got to help grow that neighborhood community in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and around other, larger greater Boston neighborhoods as that co-working chain grew. But for me, that more localized effort is where my heart is. But I do see the value of larger chains as well. I think that there is a purpose for every single kind of third space. So whether you're going to meet a friend as a remote worker, or if you're going to meet up with your enterprise team and you need a larger suite accommodation, I think that there's room for all different kinds of third spaces to thrive in this world that we're in.
So that's just like sitting on the phone there, talking to people in Liquid Space customers and stuff, and go around talking to Flock people and at Juicy and things like this, and you got this spectrum of things. What do you hear people saying all the time? Like what I meant to ask was like, what is co-working really about? What are people's reoccurring conversations at every level of the universe?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, co-working is all about human connection and coming together. I think it's really about getting away from the day-to-day routine of staying at home or going into a traditional workspace. When co-working started and when I entered the world, it was more focused on freelancers and small business. And it was really just a way to combat loneliness and get out of the house. And so we've really seen a huge evolution since I entered the space about 8 years ago. Today, everyone from, the smaller remote workers or smaller teams all the way up to the larger companies are trying to combat loneliness and get out of the house, but they don't want that traditional 5 days a week in a corporate office anymore. For me, co-working is that bridge. It allows you to have a corporate setting if you need one, but it also allows you to choose when and where you work. So it's a space that's closer to your home. It's a space where you can come and feel like yourself. You don't have to kind of code switch into a different kind of corporate being when you show up there. You can come as you are and meet all different kinds of folks, whether they're in the same industry as you or do something completely different. It's a hub for community and connection, and really just exposing yourself to all the different possibilities of work and finding a work style that works best for you.
You said my favorite line there, come as you are. The so organizing all of that, like that community manager role is what I want to ask you about, because when we talked before, we had probably spent like 20 minutes talking about community managers, and that is I know it's an amazing job, but it's also like exhausting, and you have to do like 27 different things at the same time and hold headspace for the owner, the members, the people that take the rubbish away. What can you talk about that a bit? I was hoping a question would come out there when I rambled, but what do you think about the community manager role?
I think the community manager role is crucial. I'm a little biased. I came right into a community management role out of school. I did community management for 3 years and loved every single minute of it. I agree, you are wearing many hats, and I think that's really the joy of the position. I personally love to have a day that looked different every single day. And for someone who's early career, I can't think of a better function to where you get exposure to so many different disciplines at once. In my experience, co-working community management was not only planning the events, it was also kind of the daily operations of the physical space, coordinating with janitorial and, maintenance teams and property management. It was facilitating networking connections between your community members, selling new memberships and bringing new folks in. It was really kind of managing the P&L of the space. So overseeing the finances and making sure that you're on par for KPIs. It really covered so many different things. And so for someone who's trying to build a career, there's very few roles where I feel like you get to be a generalist. And in a community management role, it's so rewarding because there's no other job in which you spend that many hours a day with your end user customer. And so I became very close friends with a lot of the members in my space. And those connections have lasted years and years after I left those workspaces. And that for me is really the reward of community management. But I also feel like that exposure early on to those multiple disciplines has really set me up for success for any position, whether that's in co-working or externally. I feel prepared to take on that challenge because it's like improv. You're quick on your feet when you're in a community management role.
Well, 'cause, like you said career there, and I feel, and I know you do too, that like you get a job as a community manager, and it's not a logical career step. Like we both did hospitality, and you become a bartender, then you become a shift leader, then you become a restaurant manager, then you become an operations manager, and then go into training or something like that. Like, can you in 2025, can you see that career path for people, or is it just a bit, I hope something works out?
That's a great question. That's actually what we're trying to solve at Future Leaders of Coworking, or Flock. I believe that there are so many different career possibilities throughout the co-working world. And when you come in early career, most often you're going to see front of house roles such as front desk associate or community manager. And painting that picture that there's more than one role that you could go into if you decide that community management isn't going to be your long-term career option. I think that there's so many different flavors of co-working and directions that you could go. And trying to paint one traditional path is not going to be possible. But I think what will be possible is painting the picture for multiple paths, whether you want to lean into an operations specialty or a member experience specialty or marketing specialty. There are so many different career paths that could be done, but with the industry being so diverse and having so many different business models, it will take a lot of time to paint those pictures in those more traditional career paths. But I think we're finally getting to a point where the industry maturity has reached and we kind of have seen like smaller players scale and grow. So those kind of career paths are becoming more and more obvious as we better understand the evolving needs of like larger chains versus the smaller players. So what roles are absolutely crucial to manage a square footage of 10,000 square feet versus a portfolio of 100,000 square feet? It's becoming more and more obvious as we spend more years getting our feet, under ourselves.
How much time do you think it will take to, for me, so it's landing, hi, I've just graduated, I've got a job as a community manager, and like, I'm not asking you to like set in stone what you should do, but I get a job as a community manager because I'm not really sure what I want to do, but that's a great place to go when my friend told me about it. How long could I expect to stay in that role, assuming I didn't, blow the building up? And then how long as an industry would it take us to work out, here's the next logical step? Because today it would depend exactly what company or what person you worked with and what your personal ambitions were. But how is that career path emerging?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've met people who have been doing community management for 10 years. I have met people who did it for 1 year. So, yeah, like you said, it really does depend on the individual. I think mapping it out, it would really depend on the size of the brand that you are working for. If you're working for an individual location that does not have intentions to scale, then the amount of roles that would be available for your brand would probably be pretty limited. You'd probably have less than 5 positions if you were running a single location. So that kind of growth path would be difficult to map out if you were hoping to stay at one organization. But if you had personal ambition to move into co-working marketing and were open to switching brands, then you would be able to kind of get exposure into different things throughout your years as community manager at that brand. I think, yeah, it's a tough question to answer, but there's no correct formula for the length of time in which community management is right for any person. But I think that I personally did it for 3 years, and that was plenty of time for me to kind of understand it. But I also miss that community management role all the time. So who's to say I wouldn't go back and do it again for a different brand in a different stage of life? But yeah,
I know.
I guess I didn't really answer your question. I'm not sure.
That was. I'm not scoring you on how you answer questions. What? So so you and the folks at Flock, what was it? January you started?
Yes, we announced in January. We launched our programming in April, so we're just over 2 months now.
So quite often people pull the ladder up after they've got a bit of success, and you actually are laying more ladders for more people to climb up. And what are you putting in place? What are those ladders to help people not be wandering a bit blindfolded in there as they get into co-working, and we build this industry as we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the reason I started Flock is I noticed a gap. I noticed that there were really no organizations devoted to future leader success across the co-working world. If they are hiding somewhere, I would love for someone to tell me because I would love to be a part of those communities. But for me, I wanted to create the community in which I couldn't find, and something that I had wanted when I had started early in my career 8 years ago. And the ladders that we're trying to build is really just peer-to-peer connection. I've found that a lot of people in our industry are siloed. So if they come into co-working, they're only familiar with the one brand that they work for, and they're not necessarily getting exposure to the global world of co-working. And I want to change that. I think it's so important to expose yourself to all of the different flavors of our industry. And when you see potential and growth potential outside of the four walls of the space you are, it's motivating. It doesn't only motivate you to be better at the job that you're sitting in, but it motivates you to kind of see, oh, I could stay here and I could do X, Y, and Z. Maybe I'll become an executive someday, or maybe I'll become an owner. And the way that we're trying to foster that today is by providing peer-to-peer connection, connecting folks who have similar functions and roles. So if you are a marketing professional and you want to meet someone else in marketing in the co-working world, we want to create that connection. Maybe you'll have things in common, things you could learn from one another. We're also trying to help foster mentorship. So creating mentor cohort groups as well as one-to-one matching is something that we're actively working on. In addition to quarterly workshops that are really targeted on career growth and getting better at your jobs.
I am, as you were saying that, I was thinking of all the events and webinars I see online and in-person events, both in the States and in Europe. There's, I've never seen one with, like in-person conferences I've been where there's like 450 people. And a lot of those have been, vendors and software providers and owners and investors. And there's other, all the people we know. I'm not going to list them all, but there's only ever like a few hundred people turn up, and there must be like thousands and thousands of community managers and people like that. And I still, like, going back to like my own turf in London, all the time people go, I didn't realize this exists. There's things it's almost like I didn't realize you could have email and calendar in the same online workspace. That it's like, how could you not know? And I don't mean that in a like, smart ass way. Like, how could you not know this exists? How it's amazing how all the stuff you and I know and people listening to this know, how many thousands of people don't even know it exists.
Yeah, it is frustrating, for someone who's been in the industry for 8 years. Like, I get tired of telling people what co-working is. I want people just to know and understand. And for me to help kind of boost global visibility, I think it's a numbers game. So how do we get everyone, not just the owners and the executives, super passionate and excited to share that knowledge and expertise with the world is something I'm hoping to inspire. So everyone from the early career professional all the way up to the senior level professional, how do we get us all talking and engaged and really elevating co-working on a global scale? And I think that starts from the bottom, so getting the community managers and the mid-career folks like myself speaking up more and, sharing our ideas with the world.
I've often thought, Sam, if only you could go to LinkedIn and when you choose your industry, there was a drop-down menu and you could click co-working. What do you think that would do?
I think that would be incredible, and I think it's long overdue. There are so many amazing co-working professionals around the world that are actively posting on LinkedIn, and unless you know where to go, you won't know where to find one another. Of course, there's some amazing industry conferences and events that help bring us together, but if you don't get invited to those conferences or events, you really would have no clue where to find a lot of these services and resources. So if LinkedIn was able to provide a drop-down option for co-working, it would be a game changer because we'd be able to connect with people just like ourselves who are, passionate and advocating for this work on the ground level in the regions that we support.
Someone should start a petition that we could all send to LinkedIn. What do you think about that?
I think that would be amazing. And that is something that Flocker Future Leaders of Coworking has started. So we did do a change.org petition to kind of begin our advocacy efforts to encourage LinkedIn to add coworking as an industry. We think that this is a really important step in the right direction for us. I think it's important for coworking to differentiate and tell the world exactly what it is. Especially as we see more of a rise in flex and flexible workspace options become available. Commercial real estate is catching up to what the world has known for a long time. Flexibility and workplace choice is the future. And so the faster that we can make sure that the world knows that co-working is not necessarily commercial real estate, I think everyone will be in a better position.
It is. That's always frustrated me. Like all the time I've been in co-working, and I flip between. I think one of the options is consultant, but consultant and real estate and hospitality. I think it says hospitality at the moment, but I always feel like I'm, I want to be vegetarian, but they're only offering chicken or beef when I fill in the thing. So we're going to put a link in the show notes to that, and we're going to put that in the 8,000 strong LinkedIn group. There's 650 people on average pay attention to that LinkedIn group every week, folks. So if Sam posts in there, and then this never happens, but by magic you all went and filled in the thing, that would be 650 more people on that change.org petition, and it will take a long time to get it going, but that would be a huge, what's the word I'm looking for? That would I hate saying game changer, but that would be a game changer for us all, wouldn't it? So for it
would be. Yes, we would love your support. So thank you, Bernie, for giving us the opportunity to speak about this today. And look forward to having all of your voices, support the co-working mission even further.
So we're just shamelessly say we're going to put links in the show notes to all of this. And where can we get in touch with you? Where can we follow you? What's the best thing people can do to get more engaged with Future Leaders of Coworking and the LinkedIn thing?
Yeah, so you can find Future Leaders of Coworking at futureleadersofcoworking.com. We're also available on Instagram and LinkedIn under that same handle. And feel free to reach out to me, or I do have 4 other leaders on the Future Leaders board. That's going to be Deshaun Brown, Caroline Vandenine, Annie Olson, and Blaze Randall. So together we're spearheading these efforts and trying to grow our presence in support of early to mid-career professionals around the world.
What would really help you at this moment in time with Future Leaders of Coworking, like signing up to the email list and stuff like that? But what could operators and bigger companies do to help you folks?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Really reach out, express your interest. If you have a future leader in your network that you think would be a great candidate for someone who wants to give back to the co-working conversations on a wider scale, what we're really hoping to do is just provide that opportunity to more folks to get involved in these larger conversations. So we don't know who we don't know. If there's a future leader in your network that you think would love to raise their hand and get involved and meet some other future leaders around the world, then please introduce them to us. And you can reach out to our team at board at futureleadersofcoworking.com.
Nice. Thanks very much, Sam. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and attention today. Go to the show notes for all those links. There's the Workspace Design Show in London in February next year. There's Unreasonable Connection, which is our monthly online small chat thing that we do. No sponsors, no pitches, no advertising. You'll just be in a little room with 3 to 4 other co-working community builders talking about co-working. And there's one other thing, and then go and fill in the LinkedIn form on change.org, link in the show notes. Wherever you are in the world, be careful out there. It is a jungle.
Thank you so much, Bernie.
You're welcome.